so cool.
Super cool. And thanks again to all of our super cool presenting sponsors. You see them on the screen here. Shout out to Staffing Boutique. Katie, I love your new logo. It looks so great there. And then the new one that you may not be familiar with is the Nonprofit Atlas. Julia shared a little bit about that yesterday. That is on the American Nonprofit Academy website, and it connects you with consultants in all different what should I say, like segments of the work within the nonprofit sector. So you can find out of, a variety of consultants and experts and resources there.
Right. It's really cool. I have to say that it really is cool.
Well, thanks, Julia. Julia Patrick is the CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, serving as a co-host. And I am Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd, CEO of the Raven Group. And today I'm so thrilled to have one of my dear friends who we met probably a couple of decades ago now, Skye.
It's been a long time.
It's been a while. But Skye Mercer, HR consultant, my go-to consultant for sure when I'm working with organizations and is outside my realm of expertise. So Skye, thanks for joining us again today, and happy Tuesday to you.
Happy Tuesday. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, today, we really want to talk about keeping remote teams engaged. And you have been on our show now a couple of times, and this entire journey continues to evolve, right? And so as we talk about keeping our teams engaged, I know I've seen a couple of tips and techniques online, but would love to hear from you, Skye, really with that HR expertise hat on. What are you seeing that organizations are doing really well at this time to manage that team engagement?
Yeah, so it is such a unique time, right? Because we were already moving toward work from home as a society. That was the trend. But now we're working from home during a global pandemic with limited childcare. So it's a totally different ballgame, right? So, I do want to, give some grace and some context to that work from home isn't always in the setting of a global pandemic. But I've seen companies do some amazing things to really keep the remote teams engaged. And we're going to be talking about some technology and some tools and tricks that people are using. But my number one thing, the message that I want to get across to the leaders that I work with and nonprofits all over the nation is asking people upfront, taking a pulse survey, talking to employees individually, one-on-one, and saying, hey, what's working for you working from home? What's not working for you? How can I better support you? Really getting into the, nitty gritty of how do you prefer to be communicated with? That to me is the number one trick, tool, resource that is going to keep remote teams engaged. Is it's not one size fits all in terms of people working from home. There are people working from home who don't want to be. There are people who want to have half time working from home and half time not working from home. There are people who love working from home full time. So really getting to know folks individually. And if you have a super large team, you can do that with a pulse survey. If you have a smaller team, I think the one-on-one conversations are so much more effective.
So Skye, I think you did this on your personal LinkedIn page or your business LinkedIn page, right? And your question, talk to us about that, right? Like, what was the question?
Yeah.
And then what were the findings that people were providing to you?
Oh my gosh, so I haven't published the findings yet, but basically I sent out a survey to my network, an informal survey of, how do you prefer working from home? Option one is 100% of the time, then down to 75, 50, 25. And so I'm going to be publishing the results later this week. So if you want to follow me, I'm on Skye HR Consulting on Facebook and then Skye HR Consulting on LinkedIn as well. And I'm going to publish those results. But what I'm finding is, a little bit of a mix. Like, people want in-person contact, but they also want the flexibility of working from home. And really what I translate that into is people want control of their schedules. One of the best ways to prevent burnout, one of the best ways to manage engagement is to allow people to have control of their schedules, which I know isn't always possible. If you're a call center environment, not always possible, but for certain jobs it is. And so seeing kind of that split is what I'm seeing. Like, yes, I want to work from home, but I want to see my team at least once a month, or I want to see my team once a week, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I have maybe like a humdinger for you, right? And so, Last week, I was in Colorado working with a client. And so I was working remotely, but not from my home, right? Are you seeing that happening more and more? Are, employees are maybe taking advantage and having this desire and great need, because I know I did, to change up my work location. Like here in Arizona, it's 100 and stupid. That's what I call it. And it's been like nonstop 100 and stupid. And so really just figuring out like, okay, I need cooler temperatures. I think I would thrive better if I could change up my environment. Maybe not want to go on a flight. Some people do, but I don't want to flight shame anyone, right? That was on the news this morning too. So like, have you seen employers support to say like, hey, I get it, for your mental sanity and your well-being, like you want to go somewhere, but please go somewhere with Wi-Fi. Are you seeing that as a trend?
Well, with larger corporations and larger organizations, absolutely. In fact, you'll see some opportunistic organizations right now saying, we are going to allow our employees to not work from home, it's work from anywhere. And so that's where I think we're going in the future. But for now, the smaller organizations that I work with, the employees are pretty much working from their home location. Every once in a while, somebody will be like, I'm going to the coffee shop that's still open down the road. Or, it's something I highly encourage actually is to go take your laptop outside, if not in Arizona right now, but like right where I'm at right now, you could take your laptop outside. There is so much benefit to changing your environment. And having a different surrounding in terms of your motivation and engagement, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we're definitely going to see a trend, even in the smaller organizations, of work from anywhere. And for the nonprofit organizations, we've talked about it before, nonprofits have been really good about using flexibility as a way to stand out when they're doing recruitment and attracting employees. And so maybe this is an opportunity for nonprofit organizations, because the economy is recovering. We are always going to face competition, especially in leadership roles, in my opinion, during my lifetime. And so having that as a competitive advantage, kind of like what Facebook is doing, you can work from anywhere, I think is going to be a benefit when it's feasible for the job. That's the important thing.
So then part of that is the technology. I mean, Jarrett had the opportunity to work remotely, work with clients, travel, and still be seamless with her other clients with the nonprofit show. I think if we hadn't brought it up, if we hadn't said, hey, Jarrett's coming to us, from Colorado, no one would have ever known. And so I'm wondering about the technology aspect. And also Jarrett brought up a really interesting question about, the ownership and fiduciary and even to HIPAA laws about using technology. Where does that live? Are you downloading it on your personal equipment, on your phone, on your laptop versus, the organizations? I mean, what does that look like? Because it seems to me that that's going to be kind of like the next level of discussion.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And you're spot on, both of you, Julia and Jarrett, that there's some really cool technology out there that'll allow you to be seamless. Nobody knows where you're sending an email from. Nobody knows with your virtual nonprofit, nerd American Nonprofit Academy backgrounds, like where are you sitting? No one knows, So there are ways to make it seamless. There's cool technology out there that companies are using to make it seamless to work from anywhere. That is an excellent question. It's actually something that I work with my clients on frequently when we set up their work from home policy or their remote worker policy. We explicitly outline, the first decision point is, are you going to purchase laptops for your folks? A lot of smaller organizations that I'm working with limited budgets are purchasing the laptops because it is a better practice. And, you can get a laptop now. It isn't as expensive as it used to be. And so that is, to me, the recommended practice, to deploy your workforce with a company paid or organization paid laptop. The other component, though, is setting up a virtual network, a VPN. And I don't want to oversimplify because this does take, some technical knowledge, but there are tools like Google Cloud now that make it easier for small businesses or small nonprofits where they can securely store documents. There's different, services like P-Cloud and, Dropbox that allow you to securely exchange documents. And so, making sure no matter what you decide with regard to that, downloading to the VPN or uploading to the shared space is always going to be preferred, always going to be recommended. But making sure that you have a policy and you've communicated to your employees that you are not to download private information onto your personal laptop. You're not to download software programs onto your personal laptop. You have to save your work to the VPN or to the virtual network. You have to lock your computer when you walk away from it. You have to keep it in a secured location that people won't be coming in and out. So there are all these things that come with security that really need to be thought through from a policy perspective, and then also from communication and training to staff.
I think to that point, because this is a firsthand experience, Skye, and for me, I own my own business, so I'm my only employee. But my son was having a hard time with his laptop, and he goes, "Mom, I need your laptop." And I'm like, "No." So I think that's something else to consider, especially when it comes to company, what company ownership, is this doesn't mean that this is another device for anyone else in the family to use, even if it seems that their system went down or what have you. I mean, for me, it was like, no, this is my life. It has all my client work in there. Yes, it's stored in the cloud, but I could see or maybe foresee that might also be kind of an issue there. Recently, in fact, just yesterday, I was talking to one of my newer clients, and they provide scholarships to students that are going into like a 4-year or a trade school, and they needed to update signatures. And I said, "Great. Do we have DocuSign? Do we have like some kind of electronic format?" And they were like, "No, not yet." So I think this is another great opportunity, right, to seize the moment to say, how might we modernize our systems? How might we, move away from hard copies and truly move into this electronic space? I also said, Julia, these should also be uploaded on the board portal as long as they're not a compliance issue, right? Like they really need to be institutionalized in there. And I think that's, just so important. But as we talk about, seizing opportunities, wow, is this a great time for so many of us to up level, and evolve our technology?
Totally.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's a really good comment, because of we need to be looking at this all the way from, the board level down to obviously even the volunteer experience, which we haven't even gotten into that. But I agree with you. We need to be looking at all these different levels, so that when we're serving our clients, we can be doing the best work we can, but we're all being secure and smart about it. So part of this is then we talk about, keeping our teams together, motivated, getting them rowing in the same direction with all this upset and change. What are you thinking about in terms of communication strategies? You started, Skye, at the very beginning saying you can be doing some polling, you can be doing some one-on-one, but what are some of your thoughts, that you've seen? When we first had you on during the Corona Chronicles, I think you were one of our first maybe 5 guests, just getting on a Zoom call. I think we had a whole show on that.
Yeah. Now people are experts, right?
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. My favorite is a daily check-in. I'm a fan of a daily check-in, even when you're facing each other. It's connection matters. I think I just posted an article from the Harvard Business Review that talks about like the statistical impact of even asking people how they're doing. So my thought is, and the leaders that I've seen really feel good about their remote engagement strategy are the leaders who are over communicating with their staff. And I say over communicating because normally the leaders that I'm working with would not have been meeting with them maybe even weekly. And now to go to like a daily check-in is a really big deal. And it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be formal. Some of them can even just be fun. Like, hey, what are you up to this weekend? Let's just talk, let's connect. Especially for the people who don't like working from home, they might be feeling isolated. And that's where, surveying and talking to your workforce about what they need most is very important. But my go-to question, and it's a hat tip to Marcus Buckingham with the ADP company, is what are you working on? How can I support you? That is like that. Hey, what are you working on today? How can I support you?
Right. I love that. And I think that's really smart. The next thing I kind of want to segue into, and this is something that if you were with us during the Chitty Chat, which we do every morning before the show officially starts, talking about policies and expectations. And Jarrett was mentioning that she's gone to your website quite a bit for herself and for her clients to look at policy structures, ideas, things that you can download, because this is such a changing time.
Yeah.
Could you talk about what you have and what that looks like?
Absolutely. So I have a couple of work from home tools. One of them is a free e-guide on how to write a compliant work from home policy. And really, it's a comprehensive guide. If you go to my website and you download it, you automatically get signed up until you unsubscribe from my resource list. And I really pride myself on providing actionable HR tools and strategies. So it's a free download. You can technically take the verbiage, copy and paste it. You can put it into a policy. Of course, I always recommend having an attorney review your policies. But the other tool that I have up there is a virtual co-working guide. And so, especially for smaller teams and smaller organizations that are new to working from home, virtual co-working is like one of my favorite tools. And the guide walks you through how to set it up. It's an employee empowered activity where employees get together and basically co-work online. So definitely go out and download that tool, because it's got a little walkthrough on how to set it up, how to structure it so that it's effective. And so people, like myself, when I am working in an office environment, I'd prefer to be in a cube than in an office. Like I'm going to throw this volleyball over the cube at you and beach ball over the cube. I like that interaction. And so the virtual co-working has been helpful for me with kind of like strategizing with people at the beginning of the call and then going off and doing my own thing and feeling a little more motivated because someone's there watching me.
That's really cool. I've never heard of that. So I definitely want to check that out. One of my questions, and this, again, a curveball, I think I'm known for this, is what are you seeing social media policy wise, right? Like now so many people are working remotely. They don't have someone looking over their shoulder. We may be online a little bit more outside of work, and doing a little bit more personal stuff. As we all know, if you haven't seen it now, I'm not quite sure, where you've been, but it's also a campaign year. So there's a lot going on, right? Like 2020 in itself, plus a campaign year. So there's a lot of, dare I say, stirred pots. Do you have policies and templates and, what are you seeing by way of communication now, especially during this time of so many people working remotely?
Sure. So I'm seeing the coolest trend that I've seen in my lifetime, and that is a transition to focusing on outcomes and impact in terms of how you measure performance. So before, when I started my career 20 years ago, 18 years ago, it was very much butts in the seat. Who's in the seat? And that means you're a good employee. So you show up every single day and you're there at your desk and you're not on social media. Once social media came out, like you're not on social media and you're just focused on your work tasks and you're the best employee. Whereas now, because you can't really stand over anyone's shoulder, while they're working from home, although there are tools like Monday.com and things like that that help you kind of monitor what your folks are doing, which is totally, cool. But, people are having to talk about what have they produced? What have been the outcomes? What has been the impact of producing or not producing? But yeah, we definitely, I work with companies. One of my specialties is doing handbooks for smaller organizations and nonprofits in particular. And we really outline a social media policy. And some companies go, kind of a more conservative or traditionally conservative approach. Some companies are like, I really don't care. Like, are they doing their job? So, I really see the range of the spectrum, which is, kind of it's a unique time in terms of people having different leadership perspectives on things like that.
I love the impact and the outcome, right? Because I've always said, and Julia knows this too, like I am a morning person and by 2:00, my brain is done. It is smoking. There is steam coming out. I could still function, but not at my highest capacity. And so I save tasks that are a little bit more, smaller in effort, if you will, as well as challenging my brain for after 2 p.m. So all of my nonprofit nerd out sessions, all of my strategic planning, like you better believe those are starting bright and early.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
think, really focusing on, it's not butts and seats. And I know I've had a supervisor before that would write on their calendar, like what time I got in that morning, and it's like, oh, please get rid of that culture. Please
Yeah.
get rid of that micromanaging culture. What about this? Because I've heard it a few times now, Skye, and this shouldn't be a curveball because I mentioned it before the show, but I'm hearing of several people, maybe not so many people, but several people taking advantage of opportunities for relocation at this time. So when you talk about technology and expectations, at some point we will have butts back in seats, maybe your company will, maybe your company won't, but really as we move into the future, I've even heard of people that it's like, hey, it's time to come back to work. And this guy was like, I moved out of state. My wife and I moved out of state. And it's like, what? Are you, are you hearing of this? And what say you when it comes to truly that expectation as we move into the future?
Right. Yeah. So that is such an interesting way to negotiate, right? Like I moved. So what are you going to do? Are you going to let me go? Or are you going to work with me? I'm going to be virtual. I don't recommend doing that. I'm all about transparency. Talk to your leadership, say, is this a possibility? Be collaborative. It's a negotiation. With any negotiation, be collaborative. What I would say, and it's as simple as this, is it depends on the job. And it depends on the organization. So, but specifically for me, especially if you want to keep up with the times and you want to keep up with the trends of competition for talent when the economy rebounds, I would say it's about the job. And so like in a job where the person needs to be, donor facing or client facing, they need to meet with people in person. They need to provide in-person delivery of, training, whatever it is. Those jobs just don't make sense. And in that case, it might be okay, so are you saying you can no longer do the job? Are you voluntarily resigning because you're saying you can't meet these expectations of the job that are, in your job description? I would say that employers need to be careful, in particular around if somebody has a medical condition and they have been working from home successfully, because, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, it says that you still need to meet the minimum or the essential functions of your job with or without a reasonable accommodation. Well, work from home is most certainly a reasonable accommodation. However, they still have to be able to meet the essential functions of their job. So if 80% of their job, and this is just, an example, is standing at the counter, handling customers at the counter, they're not likely going to be able to meet the essential functions of that position. And that's just like a very simplistic example. There's a lot more intricacy to it because you need to have that interactive discussion with folks. So that's the one area I would be really careful of. But for the person who's just like, yeah, I moved, and you're like, we need you in the community. To me, if they're saying they can't do it, they're not coming back, then they've voluntarily resigned.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
crazy. It's so hard to believe we only have 5 more minutes. And we have one comment. Let me go ahead and read it. Comment question comes from Solomon. One of the benefits of working from home, we are finding out, is that folks are learning more about themselves and being much clearer about their values and convictions. It is one of the healthier developments. How do we seize this personal transformation and leverage it to motivate and advance an organization's mission and vision? Wow, show topic.
I love it, Solomon. Like, I want to ask him because I'm sure he has some awesome examples of how they are seizing that. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before the show about authenticity. And people, it is studied, it is shown, people who are able to be themselves at work are going to stay longer. They're going to be more loyal to you. If people feel like they have to put on a facade, and especially in this moment right now where we really need to seize equity, diversity, and inclusion in our workplaces, we need to ensure that we are valuing different values and perspectives and allowing people to be their authentic selves. To me, I mean, there's just so many cool things that are going to come out of that, and making sure that that's part of the organization's culture. Like maybe it's putting out a culture statement for the organization that we pride ourselves on authenticity, and we pride ourselves on diverse values, and really like solidifying that, you know, seizing the opportunity of solidifying that as part of your culture statement of what makes you a great place to work. That's one initial idea that comes to mind, and I love that question.
The culture
Thank
statement.
you, Solomon. That's amazing. Well, you know, as always, I love it when we get to chat with you, we get to hear your perspective. It's really amazing. And I think what's been fascinating to see you, Skye, you have been masterful at taking, you know, the HR realm and perspective and treaties that you believe in and morph them and align them to what we're going through. I mean, this is such an interesting thing to witness these things. And I loved what you said, and I'll remind everyone before we sign off. You know, work from home was a strategy we were navigating towards. It was something that we were looking at. And so, especially across the nonprofit sector, you know, pretty powerful stuff. Well, hey, everybody, I'm Julia Patrick. I've been here today with our wonderful co-host, Jarrett Ransom, talking with the amazing Skye Mercer. Here's her information. SkyeHRconsulting.com has this wealth of policy information, blog posts. I'm amazed. You even have some of the back episodes that you've been on with us.
Yeah,
watch those.
I'll put this one up there. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's really cool. So what a great resource. And we are just thrilled that you've joined us today. Again, we want to thank our amazing sponsors. Without you, we could not have this discussion. Loving the Staffing Boutique new logo. Yay, team. I wanted to briefly catch you up to speed with the Nonprofit Atlas. It's a resource directory. You can go on, you can find a bunch of different resources, people that might be a good fit for your company. And so definitely check us out, the nonprofit or nonprofitatlas.com. You can access it through the American Nonprofit Academy. It's growing, and we're really excited to bring this resource to our community. Again, the Nonprofit Show, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Skye. Thank you, Nonprofit Nerd. It's been really wonderful. I called you Nerb. That's a new word.
A nerb. I mean, sometimes I'm a nerb, I'm sure.
It's kind of like orb, oracle, nerd, nerb.
I love it.
I'm just saying. Get on GoDaddy really quick and buy that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. It's been really an honor. You've really got me thinking, and I can't wait to have you back on again, because we always love your perspective in these changing times. And it's really, really been a cool thing. Again, we end every episode with our mantra, stay well so you can do well. We want to thank everyone, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.